Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will begin. It's 8:12. And Talissa, you're going to keep our time? Would you mind calling the meeting to order? Yeah, I'm way off. I wish it was 8:12 p.m. 1:12 p.m. 1:13 now. And I'm calling the meeting to order. And we'll begin with our roll call. We'll start from my left end of the table with Commissioner Krangle.
Commissioner Krangle.
Commissioner Julie Smith.
Commissioner Capola.
Commissioner Alexander.
Commissioner Sheridan. Commissioner Williamson.
Kathy Kiley, Counsel's Office.
Tina Stanford.
Commissioner Elvis Cruz.
Commissioner Christina Hernandez.
Commissioner Sally Thompson.
Commissioner Lisa Elliott. Lori Fisher, Executive Assistant. Solicitor Kevin Martin.
And public information, Bailey.
And Mr. Kent Weigand is running our video recording equipment today. And there are no public attendees. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from November 16th of 2015? And of those of you who were in attendance, is there a motion with respect to those minutes? Moved by Commissioner Sharkey. Second by Commissioner Julie Smith, I assume, to accept the minutes as presented. Any other questions, discussion, or comments? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye again of those who are attending.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions, particularly from anyone who was not present or otherwise? Any other abstentions? Okay. Commissioner Smith abstains. W. Smith abstains. All right. Okay. Old business. I've been keeping in the schedule as part of old business board training information to begin with, and we have a lot of topics that we covered in 2015, very good and timely topics, and some of the topics that we mentioned at prior board meetings will carry over into the new year, and our executive assistant and counsel and I, along with some of you, have put forth new ideas for board training. And so we hope that now that the weather is stabilizing and travel is easier, and even in spite of that, because we have the video conferencing capability, we hope to start doing a monthly training. We've certainly have enough topics to keep us going probably. So we might be able to put something together before the end of April. If not, we'll kick it off in May. Rescission should be added to the list of topics that we'd like to train on. There are some new developments coming forth with the compass that there may be a need for training on as well. And our executive assistant has highlighted some other areas that we've recently discussed in her report for your consideration. But we don't have anything planned within the next 30 days. So with that, that's pretty much all I have to say about board training. You'll see that Talissa has been kind enough to provide us all with an updated form. This is a report of training form, also known as RTF, and this particular form has the new brand on the top, and it's dated, revision date 2/2015. This is the form that's acceptable to the Training Academy to help us keep track of our 40 hours of training. Those of us who are attorneys, of course, have annual requirements of 24 hours of CLE. That counts. All the mandatory state employee training that we get through SLMS also counts. Our trainings that we do internally count. Board meetings count for the purpose of training that we receive during those meetings. So just keep track of it. And if you're doing things out on the outside, for example, going to conferences, seminars, your CLEs, other professional required training. If you attach an agenda, maybe some other information if you think it would be helpful, as well as one of these forms, you can send it to me if it's an outside training, and I'll sign off even though I'm not the instructor. I can sign off if you give me some materials to work with, and we'll send them centrally from our office to the training academy so that they can track your hours. And it should be, most of you probably know by now, we use random samples of records for purposes of our accreditation, because we have to show that we're all trained when we join the board and that we continually receive training as one of our standards. So Lori will randomly pick one or two of us, along with other staff people, to be able to show the ACA after a 3-year period in each year that people are keeping up with their training. So it's good that we have those records. It's certainly good that you have that training, and this is the form to use. So again, if it's not done in-house and it's outside, just send me the form with the training and I'll sign it and get it in for you. Anything else on training anyone wants to discuss? I think, like I said, we'll talk about some of the other areas of interest during our executive assistance portion, if anyone else has any other ideas. Otherwise, I'd like to move on to policy, procedure, and directive discussion. Okay. All right, let's start with our very own Commissioner William Smith. In looking at our board schedule, we realize that things have changed. I mean, over time, the numbers of cases we're seeing at different facilities change. And so we're always looking at possible changes to the overall schedule in terms of what might make sense going forward, in terms of which facilities to group together. So some ideas have been forwarded to me from some of our board members, and we can at least start the discussion today, even if we don't make a firm decision. But Commissioner Smith has been kind enough to do a little research, prepare some information, and so I'll turn it over to him for your consideration.
Okay, there is a handout. Thank you, Chairwoman. There's a handout which has been sent around. This is the result. I thank the other, there's other commissioners who helped with this, and we've talked to some staff. Basically, what we're proposing is to move the one of the Rochester boards, the Attica, Wyoming, and Wendy board from Rochester Video to a Buffalo Video. The reasons for it are cost effectiveness. It reduces the mileage significantly. Overtime costs would be reduced. It gives us greater control because we have 100% access to the Buffalo video room and video equipment, whereas in Rochester we have to share it with the Rochester Community Supervision. We've also talked, this is something that in the early stages, we talked to the chairwoman, also talked with Christina Wolcott as it relates to the new, both the court reporters and the new contract for court reporting, which is going to be, it's already out and it's, I guess, going to be awarded possibly in June. And so we've talked to her about it. It affects only a portion of that because we already have the Wendy Correctional out of the Buffalo catchment area, if you will. Just to briefly go over what we have, the top page is the distance from Wendy Correctional to the Buffalo Parole Office. It's 20 miles, as you can see, and it lists 20 miles and the minutes is 28 minutes. This is from the actual docs. If you go to docs, it has a website where you can enter. So it isn't something that's magical. It's made, I don't know if it's MapQuest or Google, but it's whatever the docs website is. So from Wendy to Buffalo is 20 miles. From Wendy to Rochester is 59 miles. One of the things is there's a senior offender rehabilitation counselor who's currently at Collins, and the reason that she gave us for going from Wendy to Collins is that it's so far to drive from the Collins facility out to the Rochester. So basically it's 20 miles to Buffalo versus 59 to Rochester. The second, or the third and fourth pages show from Wyoming Correctional to Buffalo is 34.1 miles. To Rochester, it's 50.69 miles. It's actually a little bit closer for Attica. It's even less than 34 miles. One of the things about that is, as you know, over 35 miles, there's a per diem cost in addition to the mileage and the overtime. So there's a savings in money there. The final page highlights from January 2010 what the board schedule was then. Now there are, when we had a full board of 19, we used to actually have 20 boards per month, 6 or 24, 6 per week. Now in 2010, we had 16, and now we've reduced that, we had 20 in 2010, and now it's down to 16. So again, it went from 24 down to 20, down to the current 16. When it was at 20, as you can see, I've circled the Attica, Wyoming, and the Albion Orleans. The reason we had to split the video was there was no way to have 2 in the same work week at the same facility. And there were actually 5 boards in West New York at that point. When we reduced it from the 20 down to the current 16, we made it only 4 boards. So in terms of being able to have it. Now, that's the plus side. The negative side is for those driving, more than flying. You can fly into Buffalo, you can fly into Rochester. For those driving, it would take, for the board members that are driving it, every week or every board, the staff, it would be less. For the driving, you're talking, remember, you're going to keep 1 Rochester board. You're only stopping 1. And to drive the difference from Buffalo, from exit 45, which is Victor, to the Buffalo office is 1 hour and 11 minutes, and to drive from Rochester is 26.7 from that spot, from the Victor exit. So if you were driving, let's say, from Albany to Buffalo, it's going to be an extra 44 minutes. Now, you say to yourself, well, is it worth having the staff save, time every month for us having to go to Buffalo from Rochester? So we went back so we're not just using anecdotal evidence. We went back and saw, well, how much time did we actually go to Buffalo? How many people drove to Buffalo on those 2 boards in 2015? So this is the actual. No one drove more than twice. So it would cost us that extra 40 minutes times 2 for the board members. The other thing is, not to say anything, but of course our overtime we don't get it. So that's a savings. But we've talked to the community supervision folks. They're always cooperative. Grant Scriven's in charge of the whole region. But it's better for him in that he doesn't control the Rochester video board and would be able to. There's instances where there's conflicts. January of this year, where we had the double boards, all the other boards started Monday because it's extra. Extra time, extra interviews. We couldn't start in Rochester because the room had already been booked for training. So we've talked to Christina Walcott, and that doesn't appear to be an issue. So this is a proposal that we make that would save, again, probably both mileage, overtime, costs, and give us more control. With that, I don't know if there's any other questions or.
When you did the analysis and came up with the conclusion that no one drove more than twice.
Yes.
What year was that?
That was last year. For example, you went on this board in September and December of last year.
I'm glad somebody knows. I don't keep.
I have it right here. I would show. There were a number who went just once. There were a number who went twice. Nobody went more than twice. Commissioner Alexander went January, May. Commissioner Ludlow, March and July. Hallinan, and again, she would fly, would be April and October. Elovich, May, only once. I mentioned yours, and that's actually the ones.
Okay.
Commissioner Smith, I want to thank you because you always do such a wonderful job of analyzing, providing us with that analysis. So thank you, because you're very thorough in that. That happens to fall on a business when we usually have the business meeting. So we would have to be exempt, with the Albany, anyone from the Albany staff. If we're going to be doing this, we're going to have to be exempt from the board meeting. So we won't be able to participate.
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because I'm not, I personally, I don't like to drive on the thruway at night.
Yeah, that's a way, I gotta go back to Rochester today.
Yeah,
You know,
so,
that's what a lot of these-
and it takes an hour
I know.
from Rochester to Buffalo, and that's gonna be a 5-hour drive
Absolutely.
from
So
us.
Rochester or the Williams
Okay.
toll booths, you
So,
go through
so
that.
for me, that, it doesn't work unless I won't be at the board meeting.
Well,
So-
that's a good idea. That's a good point, and that's why we brought this up. The reality is, we probably should change that one Rochester board to be the third week, which is not a problem. In other words, for a board week, it wouldn't affect it, because that's which you mentioned is a good point. In other words, our Livingston Groveland, who else is with them? Collins. That board could be moved a week.
Livingston, Groveland.
5
points.
5 points. But you're right. You're absolutely right. You could make that board so that Rochester's the third week, which makes sense. I mean, why put an extra 40 minutes on and affect the board meeting? That's good. That's a
Commissioner
good
Smith, I
point.
just need to tell you, it takes me an hour between Rochester and Buffalo.
Right.
Okay.
And so you wouldn't have to.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, you wouldn't have to do that on the board week.
Okay.
So the fix for that, to avoid the conflict with the board meeting, would be to switch then what's presently the panel that begins with Attica with the panel that presently begins with 5 points.
Correct. Which is the fourth week. Now that's not on the schedule that you have. That's on the current schedule.
Right.
But that's a good point.
Just change the week of the meeting.
Okay.
Well, I don't. Someone said you could change the week of the meeting, but I don't know if we want to do that.
No. And the reality is, I mean, to the point about the board meetings, people seek excuse for a variety of reasons now. Obviously, if someone's out ill or on vacation, they ask to be excused, and it's never a problem. And I do understand when people are traveling long distances and it doesn't make sense for them to have to come east to then turn around and go back west. And I appreciate the sacrifices that were made by the board members who are here today. And I assume part of that is because it's our first of the year. And so I appreciate that whenever people do that. But, that in and of itself might not be a big issue. I would assume, though, if we're serious about doing this and talking about then swapping panels, 5 points for Attica to different weeks of the month, I think at the very least before we took a vote on that, we owe the facilities a courtesy call. You've done some outreach, I assume, with the Attica, Wyoming, Rochester, and Windy.
Although limited because you didn't want us to get them all wondering what's going on and then switching and that.
Right.
So that's why I think with and Kathy, you would know. I'm not sure exactly when the contract is getting awarded, but that might be a. I mean, this isn't something that needs to be done right away. That might, whatever is in the natural progression, and the with the board meeting, that makes sense.
With respect to the contract, they know that things can change, so it's certainly subject to change, so that is part of it.
But if we did this, you don't foresee that being a problem for the contractor and requiring any amendment to the contract?
No, you don't have to do that because that's what was built into the IFB, because they at least allowed for flexibility, because obviously nothing is ever carved in stone with respect to the conference, the video conferences, etc., and where they may be, etc. So they can figure it out.
Okay, well,
Lori?
yes.
With respect to the facilities, however, if you're going to switch weeks and flip them, they have deadlines and they have schedules for getting ready for the board. So they're going to need at least a month's notice if you're going to completely change Groveland, Livingston, and
Good point.
And those, they're going to need at least a month's notice because they're working tight. They're not 4 months ahead. They're not 3 months ahead. They're working very tight schedules at those facilities. So they're going to need at least some notice to be fair to them. And they're going to need to probably, to be safe, not just reach out to the DSPs of the facilities before you do this, but definitely to DC McCoy and the AC. It can't just happen at the facility level.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Well, we're obviously not going to vote on this today, but is there at least enough support for it to then escalate and move on to the next step, which is to reach out to the facilities, starting the program services staff, starting with DC McCoy, to see if they have any concerns with our doing this? And I think they would appreciate the reasons that are in the positive column for doing this. So, is there anyone who's vehemently opposed to me not reaching out, getting some more information, getting some more feedback? No? Okay. Hearing none, then that's what I'll do. I'll take it to the next step. Thank you.
Chair, let me say a question before we move on. I mean, rather than, wouldn't it be easier to vote that we're going to do it and then you work it out with the facilities to see when it takes effect?
No, because I think it's not meaningful to ask people for their concerns or their feedback if we've already made a decision we're going to do it. And I think that whatever feedback we get might help us to make that decision.
I'm saying if there's something in the way of us doing it on the facility side, but as far as we're all concerned, if we're going to move forward, what you're saying is you would figure out from the facility side if they're okay with it, if they have any concerns, but say for instance they're fine with it, that we would come back and take another vote. I mean, would it even be necessary at that point?
Well,
if we say we would like to move forward, then all we have to do is put it together. That's all I'm saying. Why take it up again?
Because we have time.
Okay.
That would be my position. Because we have time. As has been mentioned, they're going to need time to adjust to this, to plan for this. That's going to at least be a month. So we might be voting on it in April and then have it be effective in June. You know what I mean? So I think we have some time.
My only concern is we have sporadic attendance at the meetings. So you run the risk of people not showing up or being able to come when it comes to something like that. That's why I bring it up. Because now you have vacations coming up. You have people that won't be there. We have a good number here, other than I think Commissioner Ferguson and Ludlow. But other than them, we have a good... Who? Can I finish my thought? We have a good number of people here is what I'm saying. And it would be, if now we come back for a vote in April or June, and you have 3 or 4 commissioners missing.
But guess what?
That's my concern.
But guess what? If everybody here is okay with it, and I have to have a quorum before I take any vote, I don't think the will here would be outnumbered at a future meeting. So.
Okay.
All right. The only other item that could be described in terms of directive, and I think some of you may know this, I may have shared this with some of you, we may have talked about it at our last meeting, I don't know how close we were at that point on this issue, but when we had our accreditation, of course, they looked at all of our standards, the ACA panel that came and sat with us. They looked at all of our standards, they looked at all of our records and examples of our compliance with standard. They looked at our prior standards that we sought and received waivers for. And one that stood out that they did not grant a waiver for, but it didn't cost us anything. We were still well above the number we needed to be accredited, and we did achieve that, by the way, in January. But one that stood out was the standard that has to do with meetings in absentia, decisions in absentia. And as we were preparing to go and meet with the ACA panel, we did a little research internally among those of you who have been with the board many years. This particular standard is 2 APA 1089. And it refers to, again, policy for conducting interviews, the in-person interviews of the inmates in absentia. The reality is that if someone either refuses or waives their interview, we do make decisions in absentia. And this is in accordance with an old policy and procedure manual item number 8345. That's last dated December 2010. One of the things that came out of the review of the panel was that most of our policies are pretty old. We already knew that we needed to get on the path of creating directives. And this is one that came to close to the top of the list of directives that needed to be created for this board because of this, because of the fact that the policy that we have is so old, it needs to be updated. And if in fact it's updated, then this would be a standard that we're actually in compliance with, that we actually are in compliance with, but we can't get credit for being in compliance with something when we're operating from an old policy that doesn't necessarily reflect the practice completely or thoroughly or accurately. So this is going to be one of the first directives that we're going to be voting on, and we will do our best to get it ready for your vote and consideration and review at the April meeting, because I promised the panel of ACA that we can come in compliance with that standard as early as, I think I said, end of July. So just so you know, we've got this directive. We have others that may come to the top of the list as things are discovered, and necessity and timing being important. And we also still have to put the period on the directive that had to do with the business of the Bureau of Adjudication, primarily, in that any time someone, say, from parole violations had a complaint about an ALJ or a particular decision that an ALJ may have made, that there's a process for that. We looked at that directive, a possible new directive last year. It was sent to our Bureau of Adjudication staff for their review. In the meantime, we've changed counsel. So this is something I'd like Kathy to have time to get feedback back and have this available. So at least these two new directives, and maybe even some updates to our introductory directive, 8600, we should be in a position to vote on next month. So as soon as we get the paperwork together, we'll get it out to everybody. And of those of you in attendance next month, and we can't vote without a quorum, we'll move ahead on those two directives. And then try to have more for you each month, because it would be ideal if we can get through a good number and build our directives in 2016. Trying to to check my notes to see if there's anything else that doesn't need to be done in executive session, rather. In terms of procedure, everybody has the DOCS travel manual. I use it as a reference tool, particularly to figure out our specific rate if we're doing the G29 method, or what used to be called the G29 method, and we're traveling to certain cities like Buffalo or New York, if that's not your home office. So I highly suggest that if you don't have your copy, that you let us know, and to listen, I'll get you a new copy. I think everybody's got the rates for this year, including the mileage rate. Anything you don't have that you need that would help you to submit your claims, let me know, and I'll make sure you have it. But the one thing that has come up recently that you need to know, and I think I probably spoke about it in November, but certainly we've been putting it into practice. One of the things in the employee travel manual says that for flights, the final sign-off is from our head of administration at DOCS. We talked about that, and I'm comfortable with that because, frankly, I understand the reason for it. It's for uniformity. We're all DOCS employees at one level, even though we're in a different category because of our appointed status. But at the same time, it makes sense to me. And what they've asked for is that I provide to them an indication that it's more cost effective, which is easy to do, to fly between Buffalo and New York or Rochester and New York than drive, for reasons that have been shared today in terms of the analysis about the Rochester moving to Buffalo board. So Talissa and I have been doing that for any of you who have been flying over the last few months. But this is what I have to have from you. Anytime you're looking at the schedule ahead, so now we've got April out, you will soon have May out. You're looking at the schedule ahead, you're in a New York home office or a Buffalo home office, because we don't have any more Rochester people anymore. And you see that you've been assigned to the opposite office, and it is your plan to fly. First, you got to, make your reservations and make them refundable. But second, you have to let us know, let me know, let Talissa know that you want to fly, because that will then initiate the process by which we do the cost analysis, which then gets fed to DC Marticello and gains his approval. The fact of the matter is we haven't had a situation yet where it hasn't been less cost effective to drive than fly. So that's the process, but I don't know for a fact that you're actually going to want to fly. I drive, and I drive all the time, and it doesn't really even matter to me how far I'm driving. I drive from New York to Buffalo. I drive from Buffalo to Albany all the time. So to me, it's, I've never flown, not from those two places since I've been with the board. But I understand it's more cost effective. I understand it's a preferred means of travel. But I don't know for a fact that that's what you want to do. So you have to let me know so that I can start that process. And then you have to wait until I tell you, and if you haven't heard from me, you have to wait until I say, okay, you're approved. Get on your flight and go. I don't think there'll ever be a situation where you won't be. It certainly hasn't happened yet. But that's the protocol we need to follow. And I think if you're paying attention to the news, if you're paying attention to the fact that at any given time, agencies and entities within agencies can be audited, that's the reason. I fully understand and embrace the reason for understanding that this is a more cost-effective means to travel between those regions. And you should appreciate that too. So I'm just asking that that's the protocol, that if you're going to fly, and again, it only really applies to those two offices, Buffalo and New York. If you're New York based, going to Buffalo, or if you're Buffalo based, going to New York, or you're New York based, going to Rochester, and you want to fly, you've got to let me know, As soon as you look at the schedule and see that that's what you're going to want to do, and then you need to wait until you get the sign off before you get on that plane. And like I said, if for some reason Talissa and I don't get back to you, call us and we'll make sure you have it. Okay? And, you know, yes.
Any restrictions on using Amtrak, especially the city?
No, but know that you get a state rate.
Right.
So, and those are open-ended tickets. So you're not bound to any particular trains. I used to love those. You get the state ticket and it's an open-ended ticket. I think they're good for a year or two. And you can get on any train smoking. So if you happen to leave your board late and you miss that particular train, you can get on the next train. So just as long as you're benefiting with the state rate, there's no other restrictions. Okay? All right.
Chair, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
When we were talking about board training, do we belong to APAI anymore?
No, but I've got some information for you, but I'll save that to later in the meeting.
Okay.
No, yeah. Let's see. Just make sure. There's a new vacation schedule out, so make sure you take a look at it, and what you think you have is on here, and if it's not, please let us know so we can update it. I've changed my practice in the sense of when we were less than 14, I was not approving more than two people to be on vacation per week. I've now expanded that to 3. So you'll see that there are some weeks that 3 of us are out, and that's okay. So I don't want to go beyond that because, again, emergencies can happen, and we can't afford that because we need to always make sure we have at least 2 people at every panel. Those are just procedural things.
We're still in 4 weeks, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, I don't think I have anything else, so let's move on to new business. With that, let me take a pause now to give our executive assistant time to present her report, see if you have any questions for that very well done report as usual, particularly interested in the areas of training needed for facility staff and the groups that I need some volunteers for, so please.
Quickly going over the technical issues, they seem to be slowly going away, although maybe we are experiencing a couple of things. Hopefully that'll settle down. The new video equipment has been selected in order. We don't have a timeline for installation yet. As soon as we do, I'll let you know about that. The chair already covered the accreditation and training attendance and the need for accreditation, so if you submit your hours to her, I'll get a copy and we'll have it for accreditation. I am planning on updating some of the folders in April, pulling some and updating them and giving examples, so it's not a bad rush 3 years from now at the end. We already covered the policies and procedures. The NOVO cases we were talking a little bit about before the meeting started. We were trying to revise our notification procedures. We hope to have a database to help us out instead of the box of files in my office and a manual review. We hope that we have a database made in conjunction with IPS to better track things. Hopefully it won't be such an issue in the future. I have been attending Bridging the Gap meetings between Program Services Guidance, the field parole offices, and myself. We have been reviewing issues of mutual concern. One of the things I did want to bring out that has come up in the Bridging the Gap meetings is, as wonderful as the PBCHR is, and it is, what has happened now, and one of the big issues facility issues that has come up, and that you have noted on your post-board reports, is that the facilities are missing the out-of-state criminal histories. They're not listing them on the reports, and they are missing them. And part of the problem is the PBCHR does not have the out-of-state criminal history. That's found on the rap sheet or the repository inquiry, whatever you want to say it. the SORCs in the facilities no longer have the ability to run a rap sheet themselves. They have lost that ability. They have to get a rap sheet from the IRC, the inmate records coordinator. When I talked to the director of guidance and counseling, she said, well, we didn't think that they needed to have the ability to run a rap sheet because they have to PDCHR. So I've had some discussions with her on that, but I think maybe the board needs to get involved somehow and let the ACs know, the director of guidance and counseling know that there have to be arrangements made somehow for the SORCs to have access to the rap sheet repository inquiry, because those out-of-state criminal histories are very important to you, because you're asking for them and you're noting what they're missing. And I think that's a big part of why, because it's not on the PDCHR. I think many facility staff are thinking the PDCHR is all they need because that's all they have access to, and that's why you're starting to see the whole thing. So.
But they're missing, but if you ask the staff members in the room, they're leaving the room and they're going and running the III. We're getting that last day right. We had it twice last week.
Some of them still have it. Some of them still have it. If they still have it, they haven't lost it. But as they go to re-up, they're losing that ability.
Take the re-justice exam.
Yeah. But they're losing that ability, is what's
And we do need it.
Yeah.
So.
I thought my understanding was that there were instances where it was printed separately, but that it can be asked for and still is printed. That's the way it was.
It's a delayed response.
Yeah, it's delayed. So, in other words, you might, they can order them, I believe, 30 at a time. And
No, they can only print 5 PDCHRs at a time in the system.
all right, and I think that you can request again. That's the way it used to be, is that you could request it and get the III, the NCIS, or whatever. There's 3 parts in the FBI.
You can't with the PDCHR. It doesn't. It doesn't. From my experience with it, it doesn't come included. You have to do it separately.
Yeah, it's that next step that I don't think a lot of them are even doing.
Right.
I mean, I don't know why they stopped doing it.
They actually told us in Poughkeepsie last week, we were told we never need to maybe be on the state record.
Yeah, that's not
So
true.
we do it.
That's not true.
So that's one of the things that I just wanted to bring up. That the discussion in Senator Wright is out there.
Well, there is an option. You could have, I don't know if it's ITS, you could have that fellow whose name I don't have, Brent something or other. Why can't they just print it with the PBCHR? Put in a new program fix that adds those to it. In other words, there should be a mechanism that we can get that. But even if they do get it, it's not enough just to print that out. They have to manually type it out in the old format. That was the agreement. If they don't, the alternative is they can go do it for the other 90%, which includes all of New York State. We did 90% of their work. They still have to do 10% of their work.
Yeah, because if they just print it out and they don't delineate it on the parole board report, what sometimes you'll see is a stack of 30 pages, and you can't delineate what it actually is. You can't see what the conviction is, as opposed to the arrest. And sometimes it's not even the right person. It'll just print out everyone with the same name. So they really need to put it right on the report.
Do we have
It's
a copy of that
negotiated
agreement
and that
anywhere?
is not acceptable. What?
Do we have a copy of that agreement anywhere?
The agreement with DCGS was signed by Chairwoman Evans, and I probably have a copy of it somewhere.
Is that what
But it's in your training. It's in everything we've done.
How did you happen to know that there was an out-of-state, that you needed the out-of-state
Just
records?
being at the PBCHR, you go to the last page, it says criminal history is available from South Carolina.
Okay.
And there's nothing attached. They
Okay.
had to take that next step.
So we all need to be paying attention,
Oh,
special
absolutely.
attention to that, because sometimes it's not in the report itself, in the parole board
And
report.
much like, get where I was now, but page 2 of the inmate status report said that this person had a 15-page out-of-state legal history. Well, as you looked at it, every one of those charges had been dismissed or not prosecuted. Zero record out of state. But it implied that there was a 15-page record out there that was going to be.
And there's an easy de novo.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right. So, what I did, the reason these facility issues, I was looking at them so closely was because I'm going to go down to Woodburn with the Assistant Director of Guidance and Counseling and do some parole board training with her. I got the chair commission to do that because we're having issues at Woodburn. Commissioner Thompson knows that, as well as a couple of the other commissioners. They have a really rough board down there. So I'm going to go down and try and do some more parole board training. But in reviewing that, the problems you are seeing are listed in order of how often you're seeing them in this report. And I let the Director of Guidance and Counseling and the Assistant Directors know that these are the problems you are seeing. They received an email with this list, and they now know that these are the problems you're seeing most frequently and most often, and that need to be addressed.
Are these issues getting up to McCoy and the AC level?
Yes, yes. So we've got a nice thing that we're starting to do, and this is sort of a check and balance. When you do your post-board reports, they are consolidated for the week once everyone's is in, and then sent to the deputy commissioner and his 2 assistant commissioners for program services. I can't say what they're doing on their end to consolidate whatever issues need concern. I know they review them because I get feedback from time to time. But we're also doing our internal consolidation through Lori. She's looking to see what's reoccurring at certain facilities month after month, what's happening across the state week after week and month after month, whether technical issues or overtime. She's looking at all of those things. Everything that appears on the post-board reports from the facility end and from the board end is looked at carefully, and we pass it on to Deputy Commissioner McCoy and his staff. So we're approaching it from the bottom up and from the top down. And what Lori mentioned in terms of her item E in her report, the Bridging the Gap meetings, we have our own subcommittee. The Bridging the Gap has been going on for some time now, and the whole idea is that DOCS realizes that all of its divisions that have common work and missions need to be on the same page and need to be communicating. So there are all different kinds of work groups to help bridge the gap between facility and the field, between the board and the field, between the board and facility, between central office and facility and board and field. So we have our own subcommittee, the board does. And so if any of you are interested in that, we need to meet, and we can meet by conference call, we can meet by video conference, we can meet by telephone, we can meet in person to start to, again, create yet another level of review for the concerns, to make sure that, and other members of the other divisions will be present at those meetings. So it's not just us sending out our information over the internet, not knowing what work is happening on the other side. Hopefully our very first Bridge the Gap meeting, which will have facility staff at it, will have some representation from central office, will hopefully also in the field, will hopefully help us to put a point on some of these things so that we can say at that meeting that the people that need to know, and that this is what they're doing to address this or that issue, whatever it might be. So please, if you're interested, let me know right away so we can schedule our first subcommittee meeting, or were they calling them work groups?
Work groups, and I just did to that point. I heard from guidance because they had said that they would suggest some names of some ORCs and SORCs to us. Kathy Henning-Smith from Bear Hill was one name that was suggested. Bill Close from Coxsackie are two good names. We have a Max and an RMU representative, one of the biggest meetings in the state represented. They suggested an ORC, ORC Beno from Gowanda out west. They had suggested an ORC from Fishkill. I didn't know her. I suggested an ORC from Franklin, who is on the SRC list because I think that she also would represent well. Either one of those people could be on the committee. So we have members ready and waiting for a meeting that I think will represent the different regions of the state. I'm waiting to hear from the field, so we're getting a good recruit together.
So I'd appreciate it if I had at least 2 or 3 board members who would join me on that. Kathy's working with the committee.
Right.
Lori's obviously also working with the committee. I am. But if I ever had a conflict, it would be wonderful to know that there's other board representation so that we can come back to the board at the business meetings and report our progress. So that, to your point, is somebody seeing it, what's happening with it? Now we'll know because we'll be able to carry out a particular concern to the unit responsible for for fixing it and helping us find a solution.
And does reentry also factor in there? Is reentry represented at that meeting?
Reentry
Yes.
is represented by the field services.
Okay, yep, okay. I'm interested in participating.
Well, you might be pleased to know that I had pretty much already volunteered you.
Oh, okay.
But not, but I was going to ask, and I'm asking politely, and I'm
Okay,
glad
no,
to
I'm
see
fine.
that you're
I
interested.
like new
Please,
stuff.
if there's anyone
Okay.
else interested, I'd appreciate that.
Chair,
Okay,
can
yes.
we, before we move on to facility issues, can we add a couple issues on there, just to be more specific? This way, when you're going forward, and anybody, if you object to what I'm saying or you don't see it, but
Okay.
kind of like an addition to incorrect incident offense, not current or incorrect. So definitely the attempted, a lot of times is left off. I don't know if it's a computer issue or what. The degree sometimes is left off, so you're searching for that. Under the incident offense not reported by plea or verdict, that's important, but also the sentencing date. They're very inconsistent.
Yeah.
It's supposed to have the date, and it's a lot easier when I'm looking for sentencing minutes. I'm going, indictment, I got to find the indictment, but if I see the same sentencing date, I know I have the right one, especially if there's multiple sentencing minutes.
County's also left out a lot of the time, too.
Excuse me?
County is also left out.
Yeah.
Exactly. But and it's so easy if you could match it, then you know you got the right one. You say, okay, sir, I have all these. But it just strikes me as odd because it's in line. I mean, to just leave it blank all the time is odd. It's almost like you don't care, but it's not like you have to be reminded. It is in line with right under the criteria or under the
Some
category.
people have said they were told they didn't have to do it. when they
Well,
had it.
I mean,
I started asking who tells me this stuff.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I think it's even critically important we have multiple sentences so that we don't wind up with de novo when you say we have the sentencing minutes. Another one is, especially with all these de novos, is there's inconsistency with the de novo memo, a de novo memo being right on top, in bold, who's excluded. Right? We had 3 issues last time working with Christina, I think, and Ellen. And also the reason. It's real easy. Case plan, missing sentence, whatever it is. But I try to tell the staff that when there's a de novo case, you open the folder, that the de novo, the reason and who can't sit on it should slap you right in the face. It should be the very first thing you see. This is a de novo for this reason. These 3 commissioners can't sit on it. So there's very few facilities that actually include that memo, especially with all these de novos. But some of them go, oh yeah, it's back here in this section. But how does that help me when I don't know where it is?
And it's been very helpful, Lori, when you send that stuff ahead of time so I can print off my own copies, but also from counsel's office, what Commissioner Coppola is saying, it needs to be more specific. I had a memo from one of the attorneys, and all he said is pay attention to the sentencing minutes, but didn't tell us why. So I had to figure it out, and I didn't go back to you. I didn't go back over to do it because we had to get it done. But it was a board that Commissioner Capola and I had to do.
The first thing I like to do when I do a de novo is, introduce myself, go through the preliminary, and then say, okay, look, why don't we start with de novo? You're here for this reason. We now have your case plan. You sat with your counselor. I like to hit that right in the beginning, so now it's covered.
Right.
But again, there's many times that I'm reviewing a file. We don't want to interrupt people while they're talking or the staff. And I'm like, I can't figure out for any reason why this is de novo. So, and it's hard because we have little, blackberries and stuff. But anyway, so if we could do that, and then the last thing that I wanted to add, and I think we need to talk about this differently, maybe in executive session. But as far as mistakes, I found two in the past 2 weeks. The lead commissioner was not who they said it was. So Lori had sent me one where she asked me, and I said, well, it's not my writing. So she said in the system it was me, but it was actually Smith. I can see Krangle Capola, but not Capola Smith. I mean, that's, so that happened. And then there's been times in the file where I've looked on it and said, I wasn't on this. I wasn't even there. And my name is there, but it was actually Joe. I've seen that a few times.
Was it the transcript that you're talking about, or the decision?
No, the decision.
Okay.
The decision, but I think whatever way they put it in the system, sometimes the wrong lead commissioner's in there. And it could have been me, you, and Ellen, but they may have put your name, but I was the one that conducted the interview.
Right.
The transcripts are usually correct from the court reporters.
Yeah.
It's not always, it's the people that are entering the data into the computer system that make mistakes.
Which is one of the things we focused on. I know when I work with Lisa, that's one of the things we focus on, making sure that they...
And I wonder if part of that is, because I see this once in a while, some transcripts will always be by seniority. So it would be, say me, you, and Ellen. So you, then Ellen, then my name. On the cover page, that doesn't necessarily mean that you led that interview.
Right.
And I wonder if they look at the cover page and just put whoever's
They
name
don't
is
have
there.
the transcript. They wouldn't have the transcript for at least.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, but for some reason it's done. But I think it's important.
And it's important, especially, sometimes the schedule gets changed, and you don't have the original commissioners that their facility was notified we're going to be there. You have new people, you have a different set of commissioners, and it's real important that they get it right.
And if you're not writing the decision, then whoever the SORC is or the APA, who is at that board, should be writing the commissioner who did the decision and who else is there. They should be making notes there, so whoever is entering the decisions later at the facility knows who made the decision, who the other,
And it is somewhat a question of semantics too, and I think you and I may have had that conversation where now it's called the deciding commissioner, when the reality is there is no one deciding commissioner.
Right.
There's the interviewing commissioner, there's the lead commissioner for that panel, but there is no one deciding commissioner.
Correct.
So we've got some work to do in terms of helping them refine their process, in terms of what's entered for accuracy.
well, the JES system itself says deciding, so we'd have to change JES if you want to change that. I can change my language in emails. I was just using what JES said because that's what I'm used to.
Right.
I can change my language in the emails and make it lead commissioner if that's better. That's not a problem.
That would be better. Also, yeah, I think maybe if we can try to see if we can change Jess, and see if that's a possibility as well. That would be better because it's misleading otherwise.
Yeah. And the JES system, I don't know, is years and years old, but to actually change what is in there that prints is.
We have to see if it's possible. And
Right.
we need to talk to do that.
Yep.
Okay. Is that it, Commissioner Capola?
And, I was just going to piggyback on what Mark said. On the offenses, they're just putting YO. They don't put the underlying offense.
Yeah.
Or they'll put YO robbery. They don't put the degree. So it's along that same line, too.
Okay. Any other questions on Lori's report?
Can we talk about something? I do have a question about de novos, but I wanted to talk about it in executive session.
All right.
We talked about, you and I had the discussion about the victim impact issues. Talk about that in executive session, I think.
Yeah, because we're going to be referring to maybe some specific case that in using as examples. So I would ask that that be held off to executive session. Okay. Other thing I wanted to mention, I know I hope I've spoken to everybody who will have some contact with the shop boxes about the Mariah shop boxes that we want to come to Utica. Have you seen any yet?
No.
No. Okay. In reviewing the numbers of cases each month, and now that we have 2 commissioners working out of the Utica office, I've decided that I think it's practical and makes sense to divide those 2 shop boxes, and have Lakeview continue to go to Buffalo, but the Mariah come to Utica to the 2 commissioners there. I need to reach out to the facility, obviously, to let them know that's how we're going to move forward. But I wondered, you're here now. If this is the first time we've talked about it, do you have any concerns with that?
Kevin and I spoke about it as well, that we don't have an office there. We literally sit at the lunch table when the staff aren't there. So
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, there's no office space. I personally wouldn't take them home because of the distance, and I don't want to have them with me in case something would happen to them and compromise them. Just have to clear it with their staff that they're willing to send them back to Mariah for us from their mailroom, wherever that even is, I don't know.
I honestly didn't realize you didn't have one office even to share there. Is there office space available? Or do you
Senator
know?
Griffo, who lives the floor below us, has offered us space if we ever need his conference room. That's not my position to impede upon him, but as far as the parole room, all we have is the lunch table. That's why even when there's video conferencing, we have to be careful that it's not during the lunchtime because the staff's using the lunchroom. That's where the TV is.
So I wonder, because I can recall Commissioner Ludlow video conferencing in from a room that looked like an office. Was he borrowing someone's office, or was that just a nice corner of the lunchroom?
It's got a beautiful window.
Yeah,
It was just a tighter shot. If you notice, some people walk in, open the refrigerator, and grab something. Kevin gets jealous.
Well, I guess it's good that we haven't been having confidential discussions with that in mind. Okay, all right. Well, thank you for that. I guess I will reach out and try to solidify those arrangements. And obviously the security of the files is important. So if we can work that out with the field staff there, we'll hope to begin that. I think you might have a conflict with a schedule that comes out associated with that. So you get the schedule, you realize that you've got a conflict, or even you don't think there's going to be a conflict, but then Sunday night or Monday morning, something happens. Please always be sure to contact me to let me know. It's not even a question of giving you permission not to attend, but obviously I have to know if a board needs to be covered. So please always contact me, send a copy of any email to Lori. You're always free to call me. I keep my BlackBerry on. If I don't think it's urgent, I may not respond right away, or if I can't respond because I'm in a facility, I won't respond right away. But if I realize it's urgent and I see the message, and like I said, I try to keep it near me all the time, all weekend, at night, it's near me, I'll be able to make whatever shift. Associated with that, if you ever need to leave early, I need to know. The fact of the matter is, these schedules are out weeks in advance. You know that you never can tell how things are going to work out. You could have a technical difficulty that could push you into the evening hours later than you might expect to be there. And it's even more imperative. It's imperative whether you're a 3-person panel, certainly more if you're a 2-person panel. But if you have any issues, you have to let me know. I need to know even if you just need to leave early. One of our commissioners pointed out it's simply not fair to the men and women who may be at the end of the schedule that the day started off with a 3-person panel with less opportunities for lack of consensus, that by 5 or 6 o'clock now is a 2-person panel. because somebody had something they needed to attend to. So please, try to avoid doing that, leaving early. But if it can't be avoided, please make sure I know, and please make sure the lead commissioner knows, okay? In as much advance notice as you can possibly provide.
And perhaps we could talk more about specific scheduling in the executive session.
Okay. We at the end of the year, I think everybody should have gotten this. I think they sent a copy to everybody. This is a booklet, a publication of the Center for Justice at Columbia University, entitled "Aging in Prison: Reducing Elder Incarceration and Promoting Public Safety." It was from a November 2015 symposium that was held at Columbia. And did everyone get a copy of this in the mail?
I didn't.
No. And what I saw after the fact was they sent a postcard that said if you wanted a copy, you could get a copy. So if you want a copy, it's very well done. It's like essays done by a lot of different people who are concerned about this issue, and statistics. A lot of time and effort went into the symposium, and a lot of good information is provided in this booklet. Even Lynn Cortella, formerly of the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, spoke on New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision discharge planning barriers, potential strategies, and again for the aging population. So if you want a copy and you let us know, Talissa and I will try to make sure you get a copy. But it's good information, and at some point we may even invite the leader of Release Aging, let me get his correct title. Mujahid Fareed. He's the lead organizer of Release Aging People in Prison, also known as RAP, R-A-P-P. May even invite him to a future board meeting.
I did sit on a panel that he was on regarding this issue during the Black, Puerto Rican, or Hispanic Asian caucus. So.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to get it online. I did read it online.
Okay. Thank you for that. And if I can find the link, maybe we can mail that to everybody too. Talissa will try to remember to do that. So that you can get a hard copy if you need it. We'll try to help you get it, or we'll provide the link as well. Okay, the last thing that I have in terms of new business is Association of Paroling Authorities International, or APAI. It could very well be that the board was a member at some point in time. We are not any longer. But this is what I want to suggest. The associate, an individual membership is $65. I think I did the math and it came out to like $40 a piece. We can get a group membership. So if you are all interested, $40 a piece, we can all be members and have access to webinars, training information. It really looks like a worthwhile organization for us to be a part of. The ACA is great, but the fact of the matter is it's not specifically for paroling authorities. It's for correctional systems. And they're doing a better job, I'm sure, trying to meet the needs in terms of training for parole authority people, but this is the Association for Paroling Authorities. And you'll see in the information that I've provided the cost for an organizational membership. If this is not voted, if this is voted down, I would encourage you to become an individual member, but you'd be paying more. But we can get the organizational membership for 14 to 20 members. And that could even include some of our executive staff, because we don't have 20 board members. Okay. And then it gives you some
$41
$41, right?
I can do it.
I can do it.
I want to do it. I think it's a good idea.
So you've got the mission here, and I mean, it's too late for me. I have to admit, although they look like they have got some really wonderful workshops planned, but they're going to be having their annual conference in May in Daytona. Now, obviously, we don't have money to do these kinds of things, and we don't go out of state unless it's really important for us to go out of state, and that's not likely for APAI. However, so you'd be paying your own expenses to go to any of these conferences. Of course, webinars are free, but they look like they really have a terrific agenda. So if you're interested and we join by next month, then you can go at the member rate at your own expense. So that's something to keep in mind. I'd like to take a vote on this today because I really think we should do this. I can have, if we can collect the money, we can be members, like I said before, within the month, as soon as we got all the money from everybody. So what do you think? Any questions, any conversation? Okay. The motion? You want to move?
Yes, we take a vote on membership. Want to be a member or not?
Okay. There's a motion on the table by Commissioner Hernandez that we join the Association of Paroling Authorities International and get an organizational membership. Is there a second?
I have a question on that.
Sure.
So if you don't want to join, if we take a vote, what about the person who doesn't want it? You got to pay anyway? If you vote for it as a group, and I vote no, but the group votes yes, I have to pay $40 even though I didn't want to be a member?
Well, perhaps not.
Well,
But then we might. But then we might need to.
That is a valid question. I mean,
but then we might need to expand the
then it's
potential.
going to cost you all more.
It might cost us.
No,
more.
that's my question.
It will
Yes.
cost us more, perhaps.
Okay.
But then, if there are other members of the executive staff that want to make up that 14 number, that could work too.
I'll pay for you more.
And I would assume then you wouldn't be well. I don't know. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know.
that's
I won't
why I
speak to
asked.
I won't speak to the question of whether or not
Because
you'd be able to
I-
benefit if you voted against it. That's for the group that.
Well, I'll make it
That's
easier.
in favor.
I'm going to vote against it, so you can divvy up my share, I guess. I don't know. That's why I wanted to bring it up before you vote.
Okay. I appreciate that. So, is there a second? We don't have a second yet. Okay. All right. All in favor of joining and paying into joining the Association of Paroling Authorities International, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And our nays? We have 2, 3,
4.
4 nays. Okay, I think the motion is carried. So what we'll do is perhaps invite other members of executive staff to see if they want to join with us. We'll see how many we have at the end of the day, divvy up that number, and those of us who join together will be members. Okay? All right, so
I mean, we may not even have to do the 14 to 20 and drop down.
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. So, let me just. Okay. All right. Finally, correspondence, announcements, and invitations. I think all of you know that members of our executive have lost loved ones since our last meeting in November. Our very own Mrs. Freeman Ruffin lost her mom. Kevin Ludlow lost his mom. And I don't know if there's anyone else that knows of anyone else that I should mention.
Patty O'Malley lost her brother.
Patty O'Malley lost her brother.
One of the ALJs, the administrative law judge.
Okay. All right. Could I just ask for a moment of silence in their memory? Thank you. Thank you very much. And I know you've all heard, former First Lady Nancy Reagan also passed away recently. We did send cards for each of those members of our group who've had losses. In addition, flowers to Talissa and her loss. Another announcement is National Crime Victims' Rights Week is going to be commemorated the week of April 10th through the 16th. The theme this year is Serving Victims, Building Trust, Restoring Hope. There are lots of events locally in the capital region and north and south of the capital region. There are events all over the state. I don't have a link to the Office of Victim Services does not have postings of statewide events. I don't know if they're doing that this year or not. I tried to check to see, but they didn't have it up. But they too just got a new web page. So it may be something that's going to go up, or maybe they're not doing it this year. I don't know. But I have a list of local events. If you're interested, I'll send them to you. But again, these are pretty much in the capital region. Warren, Washington County, Albany County, Rensselaer has some things. And then there's the Memorial Brick Dedication Ceremony that's not going to be until June right here at the state capitol in the Empire State Plaza. There's a garden. So if you're interested in any of these events, let me know. I'll share the information. And again, if you're also interested, you can check with your own local service providers for information. Every now and then, we get nice letters. Sometimes we get letters that aren't so nice. But every now and then we get nice letters. And I just decided that it was worthwhile to just read the body of the letter. I won't read the identifying information. But this is regarding appreciation and gratitude. This letter is to further express my gratitude and respect for you and the rest of the board members who granted me another lease on life. I assure you that I am rehabilitated and reformed from the past behavior I exemplified 24 years ago. I was an uneducated person prior to my arrest, which prevented me from better and sound decisions. You and the rest of the board did not have an opportunity to learn about my life before my arrest that I'm quite certain would have assisted you with a greater understanding of where I came from, how I was raised, and why my life ended up in a train wreck. However, I hope that I will be able to share my story with you and others in the future because I believe I can help other people who've been experiencing my pain get through their trials in life without resorting to crime. In closing, thank you all for treating me with respect, kindness, and consideration for parole release. My family sends their reverence as well. Thank you, sincerely. And this wasn't even a panel I was on because I had Lori check to see who was on this panel. And so I will share that with those specific members, But I just wanted you to know that people are, there is rehabilitation, there is redemption, and people are grateful. And from time to time, they send these cards. So I will share them as often as I get them so that you all know that when you're taking a chance on somebody's success, that it is appreciated. And we're all appreciated for that. Okay, without further ado, unless there's any other new business or announcements or invitations, I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session and to discuss litigation with our counsel or otherwise confidential information. And at the close of that executive session, adjourn the meeting. Is there such a motion?
I make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Commissioner William Smith. A motion made by Commissioner Hernandez. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, we are now in executive session, and it's what?